Hello everyone, it's Eliza McNamara here to talk to you today about part 2 of sexual transmutation. And as I said in the first video, if you're easily offended when people talk about sex, then just stop watching right now. What I realised fairly recently is that sexual energy is not necessarily meant to be expressed sexually. It can be, and it is most of the time with most people, but it can also be expressed creatively. And when a person has a lot of potential and they learn to express their sexual energy, their creative energy through their work, they can become very, very successful. They can have a lot more energy and a lot more drive to go after the things they want to go after and to produce the results they want to produce in their life. But most of us are completely ignorant and we have no idea what we're doing with our creative energy. And creative energy, sexual energy, if it's not channeled into something worthwhile, into a worthwhile pursuit, into something you're passionate about, it will find a lower outlet. And the lower outlet is sex or, any kind of sexual activity, whatever you want to call sex, is up to you. Just wait for the helicopter to go past. Hopefully there won't be any more. And basically, if you have this creative outlet, if you have a productive creative outlet for your sexual energy, and you're aware of the fact that your sexual energy is creative energy, which just needs to be channeled into something creative, then you'll find that you actually don't need to have sex as much as you think. You actually find some people, like monks for instance, they become completely abstinent and they're not repressing their sexuality. I'm sure they have some kind of sexual relief, even if it's on their own sometimes, but the reason why it's not important to them is because they're channeling that energy into a higher energy. And they might be giving lectures, they might be writing books, whatever they're doing, they're channeling that energy into something creative, into something they're passionate about. Because when you do something you're passionate about, you're still expressing that creative energy. That creative energy, that sexual energy is still being expressed. So a lot of people might think that they need to have sex, or they need to masturbate, or they need to relieve themselves somehow. They don't realise that the reason why they feel this is not because they actually need to have sex, it's actually because they need to channel that energy into something more productive. And as I said in the last video about sexual transmutation, it's not about repressing your desire for sex at all. It's about channeling that energy so that you have more of a balance, because most people don't have that balance. They're either repressed, i.e. they're not having enough sexual relief, or they go over the top and they go too far. Because society makes people think that it's bad and it's wrong to have sex and it's a terrible thing and oh my goodness, how dare you enjoy your sexuality and how dare you be open about it. It's very hush-hush, it's very taboo, it's supposed to be bad or dirty or foul. I don't know why we have this thing in our society, but I think it's really sad actually that we have this negative view of sex and sexual energy, because sexual energy is a beautiful thing, and when it's channeled and used in appropriate ways, it can enable somebody to produce massive results in something that they're passionate about. But because as a society we make it out to be something bad and something taboo and something negative, most people have no idea what they're doing with their sexual energy, fritter it away hopelessly, chasing after guys or girls or masturbating or doing whatever they're doing, and that valuable energy that could have been channeled into something productive is just wasted. It's basically like throwing money in the bin. You're throwing away valuable energy. And you'll notice that when somebody is channeling their sexual energy in a positive way, you'll notice that there's something about them. There's just something. They have that thing. They have that, you don't even know what to call it. It's just something special. And when somebody is ruled by their lower energy, by the sexual side rather than the creative side of that energy, they can come across as seedy, or they can come across as just, I don't know, how to put it into words. It's just not attractive when somebody is obsessed about releasing their energy in that particular way. Even if they had a low sex drive and they weren't channeling their energy and they were expressing their sexual energy in the sexual way and not in the creative way at all, that could be something that makes them very unattractive. And unless you're aware of this, you probably have absolutely no idea what I'm talking about. And that's why I say it's so sad that as a society we make it out to be something that's so taboo, that's so bad. Because if we were to educate ourselves, young adults and our children, and help them to understand these things at a very young age, they would achieve so much more in life, and they wouldn't feel so bloody confused in puberty, because God knows I felt confused in puberty. I had no idea what was going on. And that's because most of us in puberty do not have somebody teach us how to channel that creative energy into something we're passionate about. Very few of us have somebody actually explain the whole process and explain what's going on. So as a girl, you'd be obsessed about boys, or as a boy, you'd be obsessed about girls. And nobody tells you why you're obsessed about boys or why you're obsessed about girls. It's just, oh, that's just a teenage thing. Most adults aren't even aware of this, because as a society we feel so ashamed when we mention the word sex. And that's probably because the people who do enjoy their sexuality don't do it in a balanced way, because as a society we've been conditioned to believe that you're either one extreme or the other. You're either really sexual and there's something wrong with you, or you have to be repressed and repress your sexuality and it's a negative thing and you're not allowed to express it, and you have to only have sex when you're married. I'm not saying people should only have sex when they're married. Not at all. What I am saying is people should make sure that when they are expressing their sexual energy, it's not distracting them or a replacement for having something they're passionate about that they're channeling that energy into. It's about balance. All of life is about balance. You need to have enough sleep, you need to have enough food, you have enough exercise, enough time to yourself, enough time with others, etc., etc., etc. Everything is about balance. So your sexual energy and your creative energy, it's one and the same thing, but in order for it to flow the way it's supposed to, it needs to be balanced. So for instance, if a person is really sexually frustrated and they're not aware of the fact that they're not expressing their creative energy, they may find themselves, instead of channeling that energy into something worthwhile, they may find themselves thinking that they are sexually frustrated. And yes, they are sexually frustrated, but only because they're not expressing that energy in another way. If they started expressing that energy in another way, then they would suddenly find that their sexual frustration would go away. Like for instance, a few weeks ago, I had a pinched nerve from doing it myself too much. And I felt like I needed to relieve myself, and instead of expressing myself creatively, instead of transmuting that sexual energy, that creative energy into something I was passionate about, I just continued to deal with it myself and continued to isolate myself. And my pinched nerve got so bad that I couldn't even brush my hair. Well, I could, but it took about 20 minutes. It normally takes 3, if that. And I managed to express my creative energy because I went for a walk one night, because I couldn't do anything when I was indoors. I couldn't do any computer work. I couldn't do any exercise. I pretty much couldn't do anything apart from stretch, and it wasn't good for me to sit down for long periods. So I found myself going for walks late at night. And on one of these walks, I happened upon somebody who was paying a tribute to Michael Jackson, and he was dancing to Billie Jean. And I said, oh, I can sing this song. So I started singing with him, and my arm was killing me because it was affected by the pinched nerve, and I still held the mic even though my arm was killing me, and it was really late and I was really tired, and I stayed there for a few hours until the police came and told us to leave, because I was so passionate about my singing, and I was expressing that creative energy which had been trapped within me and which had been seeking an outlet, seeking release through a lower form of release, because that's what it is. If you release your energy sexually instead of creatively, you're releasing it in a lower way, in a less valuable way. And it's not necessarily completely wrong, but it's not necessarily good for you either. And from that moment, I realized that I've been suppressing my desire to sing. And I realized that I absolutely have to sing because it's something which just has to come out. And that's something that I'm passionate about. And that is a way that I can express myself creatively without having that build up. Because when you express yourself creatively and you have your creative outlet, like that pilot's having his creative outlet right now, so when you have that creative outlet, you actually find that you don't need to relieve yourself sexually as much, because it's just not necessary, because you've already had your relief through your creative outlet. Because whether it's sexual relief, whether it's relief that you get from exercising, whether it's relief that you get from speaking in front of an audience or singing or whatever, it's still releasing that creative energy. And however you release that creative energy, it doesn't matter, as long as you release that creative energy in a creative way, and also preferably in a sexual way as well, because there needs to be balance there. You can't just go completely to one extreme or the other for really, really, really long periods of time. It's not very healthy. And as hard as it was for me to be completely honest about that, I think it's really sad that we live in a world where we can't talk about sex openly. I think that's really sad, because we talk about sleep, we talk about food, we talk about exercise, we talk about people's bad fortune, we talk about people's good fortune, we talk about everything except sex. Sex is the only thing that we're not allowed to talk about. Well, there's a few other things, sex, politics and money, but sex is the most taboo topic, and it tends to be talked about in really negative forms of media, in really negative ways, and it leads our young people to believe that their sexuality is a negative thing and that they should suppress it. We don't even let them know that if they started creatively expressing that energy, their sexual frustration would go away. We don't even know that ourselves, half of us. I had to read Think and Grow Rich, the sexual transmutation chapter, about 10 times before I finally got it. But you have someone else to teach you that from a young age. It can make it much easier. So if you are a parent, pass this knowledge on. If you are a young person, take this on board, channel that energy. Don't be obsessed about boys or girls. Just be obsessed about something you're passionate about. And then, when you are with someone that you want to be with, whether you want something casual, you want something serious, or whatever it is, it's not going to be the centre of attention, because you have a life, and that's important. So, thank you very much for watching, and have an awesome day.